Hey guys, in this video we're going to be talking about what might be some of the better value bets today in college basketball against the spread for December 13, 2016. If you're interested in getting more pick content beyond what I just discussed in this video, you can head on over to stumpthespread.com and get all of our plays across all major sports as well as our daily free play over there. And if you can, click the thumbs up or subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated, it really helps us out. I got about 6 games that I'm going to talk about for Tuesday's action, and we're going to head right in with Temple versus Villanova. One of the more intriguing matchups of the day, even though Villanova comes in as huge favorites. Temple has gotten off to a pretty respectable start so far this year, showing some of their better performances in some of their tougher matchups. They have some pretty strong upset wins earlier in the year against Florida State and West Virginia. Those are really great wins for the Owls. This team, they've been a little less consistent than you'd like to see out of a squad that's capable of beating top 25 opponents like that, but um, you know the Owls have picked up some really nice resume building wins thus far, and even being competitive here against Villanova would be a pretty solid result for the Owls, so it'll be interesting to see if they can bring that high level of play here that they've shown in some of their other matchups against top caliber competition. Villanova, obviously coming off the national championship last year, this is a group that brings back a lot of veteran experience. They have great coaching. They're not going to beat themselves. To beat this Villanova squad, you have to bring not just your A game, your A plus game. You have to almost play perfect, especially if you're a more mid-tier team in D1. Villanova has gotten off to an undefeated start. They've grabbed that first ranking in the polls. In their last outing, Villanova was able to unseat the previously undefeated Notre Dame. This is a Villanova squad that's really picked up quite a number of resume-building wins. More specifically, their true road win against Purdue earlier in the year was a really great result for Villanova, and this is a team that's really just been consistently getting the job done. We do expect Villanova to come through here and get the win straight up, but Temple has shown really well against some very strong opponents so far this year, and we think that the Owls can keep things respectable enough to where getting the 16.5 points feels like the better value bet with the Owls in this particular matchup. Moving on to Tennessee Tech against Tennessee. Tennessee Tech's opened the year 4-7 overall. Even though they have racked up a lot of defeats, they have been fairly competitive. Specifically, in their last outing, Tennessee Tech was able to keep things within single digits in their loss on the road against Michigan State. Now, obviously, that Michigan State team not looking quite as strong as people were expecting coming into the year, so not quite as an impressive as a result as it would be if Michigan State was still ranked in the top 25. And now going back-to-back on the road against tough physical opponents could be difficult here for Tennessee Tech. The Tennessee Vols, coming off that heartbreaking loss in their last outing, they played really well on the road against North Carolina, but Tennessee came up just short in the end of that one, losing by 2 points. Even though the Vols did lose that game, it's still a result that they should, or at least they can build momentum off of if they take it in a positive manner, not, self-wallow in the fact that they weren't able to get the job done in the end there against the Tar Heels. This is a Tennessee squad that's trying to build themselves back up under head coach Rick Barnes, who's bringing in the right kind of guys. This is a pretty athletic team, and they can really do a lot of good things down in the paint. They were able to control the paint for a bit there against North Carolina in their last outing. And Tennessee, they have been a little bit up and down so far this year, but all of their defeats have come against quality opposition, so no bad losses thus far for the Vols by any means. This is a Tennessee team that we expect to get better as the year goes on and potentially finish more in the mid-tier and maybe even slide up closer to the upper tier of the SEC if this group continues to show improvement and continues to show the same kind of effort and results that they had in their last outing against North Carolina. Tennessee should be able to own the paint today on their home court here against Tennessee Tech, and Tennessee has shown the ability to win in blowout fashion at home in recent games that they've played there. So even though this is a rather large spread and Tennessee Tech is coming off a fairly competitive loss against Michigan State, we do like the Vols to build off of their nice result and strong showing in their last outing as they go on to win this one convincingly as they cover this large spread. Denver versus South Alabama. We're not all that high on this Denver squad. Ever since the Pioneers have moved over into the Summit League, they've just really been a disappointment compared to where they were prior to shifting over. But this is a Denver team that, they've been a little bit up and down so far this year. They have actually looked better as of late, but they've played a really road-heavy schedule, which could catch up with them in this one, even though, in their last outing, the Pioneers were able to get past Air Force on the road, win that game by 12 points. That was a really solid result for Denver, but now they have to head on the road yet again, and just as what has been a really road-heavy schedule for the Pioneers as of late, and that's probably part of the reason why this spread has shifted up a little bit. Even though Denver did look good in their last outing, just the fact that they've had to travel so much, it's got to be on the back of people's minds when they're placing their bets on this one. You have the South Alabama team who got off to a really nice start this year, winning 6 of their first 7 games. They've kind of taken a step back as of late, but this is a great chance for the Jags to get back on track playing at home against a beatable opponent. South Alabama, they opened the year with that really impressive true road win against UNLV. That's a UNLV team that's not as good as they have been in recent years, but still, for a program like South Alabama to go into Vegas and pick up a win against the Rebels, that's pretty good for them. They have picked up a couple losses recently, but we actually feel really strong in South Alabama in this one, going against what should be a fatigued Denver squad and giving just the between 4 to 5 points here. We do like South Alabama to come through at home and cover this moderate spread. Here's an interesting matchup, Monmouth against Memphis. We were really high on this Monmouth squad last year, and we're a little bit disappointed that they weren't able to get into the NCAA tournament as an at-large bid, given the fact that they just beat so many strong teams in the non-conference. Unfortunately for Monmouth, a lot of what were solid resume wins in their non-conference last year ended up being more mediocre resume wins, given the fact that a lot of those teams ended up falling off more towards the end of the year, but that was just unfortunate for them. This is a Monmouth group that returns pretty much all their main contributors from last year's team that went to the NIT as a 1 seed. We'd be pretty surprised if this group wasn't able to get out of the MAAC this year, getting through their conference tournament like they were unable to last year. This is a group that really has a chip on their shoulder, but surprisingly, Monmouth hasn't actually looked as good this year in the non-conference as they did last year. Last year, maybe people are getting a little more aware of this group, and they're not kind of surprising anyone with their their style of play that they bring in. They really like to push the pace of action and jack up a lot of 3-pointers. And then you got Justin Robinson, the star guard there. Hasn't gotten off to quite as strong of a start as we saw out of him last year. He's been a little bit better as of late, and he's leading the team again in scoring, averaging around 16 to 17 points per game right now. But this was a guy that regularly scored in the 20s last year, and we do expect him to get back on track here as we head closer to conference play. Monmouth, I say that they haven't gotten off to a great start this year, but they're still only 2 defeats, and those came on true road games against the likes of South Carolina and Syracuse, who are both solid competition. So not, the worst start in the world by any means for Monmouth. It's just in some of their more manageable matchups, they haven't been winning in blowout fashion like we saw this group do so often last year, but this unit is still putting up a lot of offensive numbers. Just their defense has been a little less consistent than we'd like to see out of them. But going on the road here, they're taking on Memphis. This is a Memphis group that made a switch at head coach this past offseason, bringing in Tubby Smith. Tubby Smith's done some pretty nice things at his last few coaching stops. And actually, surprisingly, for a Tubby Smith coach team, Memphis has actually been putting up some really respectable numbers on the offensive side of the ball and not so much on the defensive end. It'll be interesting to see if this trend holds. Tubby Smith, always well known for, playing at a slower pace and not, looking for his team to push the pace of action. But both of these teams have been putting up some pretty strong numbers, and if you like offense, this is going to be a pretty fun game to watch. We expect this to be a more competitive matchup between these teams that compare pretty well with each other. Getting the 3.5 points here, we feel like Monmouth is the better value play, even though Memphis is coming off a pretty nice win against UAB. They ended up picking up that win by a final of 62 to 55, but we value this Monmouth team pretty highly, and getting the 3.5 points here, we feel like the Hawks are a pretty decent bet. All right, just a couple more games that I want to touch on for Tuesday's action, starting with Morehead State against Eastern Washington. This matchup is, or has some of the similar aspects to this Denver South Alabama matchup. So Morehead State not getting off to a great start this year, just picking up 2 wins. This is a team that has played a very road-heavy slate and going all the way to the other side of the country to play Eastern Washington, and this road game is just another tough road test for them. Morehead State's currently winless on the road this year, and it's going to be tough for them to break that habit in this one, especially given how much traveling this squad has done recently, and fatigue is definitely something to keep in mind here for Morehead State in this particular matchup. And then we have this Eastern Washington squad who's currently undefeated at home this year. They've gotten off to a strong start, but part of that has had to do with the fact that they haven't gone against the toughest schedule by any means. This is a manageable game for Eastern Washington, but one that they shouldn't overlook just based on the fact that Morehead State hasn't picked up many wins this year. When Morehead State brings their top level of play, they're able to turn in a pretty solid performance, but Eastern Washington has been consistently taking care of business at home this year, and we expect that to continue in this one. Giving the 3 points feels like a pretty solid bet here with Eastern Washington. And then the last game that I want to talk about for today's action is going to be Montana against Oregon. This is a Montana team that's probably going to compete near the top of the Big Sky this year. The Grizzlies have gotten off to a not quite the kind of start they were hoping for this year, but even though Montana's racked up a lot of losses, they have traveled quite a bit and actually tested themselves against some pretty solid competition. And even though Montana has picked up quite a few defeats, they pretty much have been coming in competitive fashion against quality opposition. People will look at Montana's record and think that they're just some doormat team, but this team has some talent, and their best player is actually an Oregon transfer and Rory, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of extra effort and performance he puts in today going against his former team. And then you have this Oregon squad came into the year as a preseason top 5. They haven't even been close to living up to those expectations. Oregon, they've picked up some nice wins, but what's really been kind of frustrating for Ducks fans is the fact that Oregon has had a tough time putting away mediocre levels of competition. You'd really expect a team that has this much talent, and especially returning talent, the fact that this group should have quite a bit of continuity. They just haven't shown that so far this year. Even though Oregon has racked up quite a few wins, they just haven't been doing it in very impressive fashion. And actually, on the offensive side of the ball, this group has had a tough time really putting up a lot of points, and even utilizing their strong home court advantage. Oregon hasn't been necessarily winning in blowout fashion all that often on their home court against moderate opponents. This is going to be a very winnable game here, obviously, for Oregon, but I feel like Montana's getting overlooked quite a bit in this one by the odds makers. Getting the 18.5 points here with a Montana team that always competes at a high level and has the kind of talent where they can at least keep things respectable here against the Ducks. We really like the Grizzlies getting the generous amount of points here as a pretty solid value bet. So that pretty much does it for today's actions. Those were the 6 games that I feel like have potentially some of the better betting value in college basketball. Again, if you're interested in getting more content beyond just what is in this video, you can head on over to stumpthespread.com. You can get there by clicking this logo here in the top right hand corner if you're on desktop, and I'll also link it in the description if you're interested in doing that. And if you can click that thumbs up or subscribe button, it's greatly appreciated. It really helps us out. And you can also get notifications of when we release these college basketball pick videos in the future. So thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.